The 7th Canadian Infantry Brigade was an infantry brigade of the Canadian Army that fought during World War II. The brigade, along with the 8th Canadian Infantry Brigade and the 9th Canadian Infantry Brigade, formed the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division. The division arrived in the United Kingdom in 1940 and spent 3 years in garrison duties and training in preparation for the assault landings on Juno Beach in Normandy on 6 June 1944. Formation: Brigadier Harry Wickwire Foster 1st Battalion, Royal Winnipeg Rifles, Lieutenant Colonel J. M. Meldrum 1st Battalion, Regina Rifle Regiment, Lieutenant Colonel F. M. Matheson 1st Battalion, P. Canadian Scottish Regiment, Lieutenant Colonel F. N. Cabaldou 7th Infantry Brigade Ground Defence Platoon. Juno Beach, D-Day. Juno Beach was 5 miles wide and stretched on either side of Courcelles-sur-Mer. The 3rd Canadian Infantry Division was the assault division, along with the 2nd Canadian Armoured Brigade under command to provide armoured support for the infantry assault brigades. The 7th Canadian Infantry Brigade had been selected to take part in the initial assault. They would land on the left-hand side of the beach, supported by the 6th Armoured Regiment. During the assault, the Regina Rifles would land at Courcelles, which had the codename Landgreen Beach. The Royal Winnipeg Rifles would land on the western edge of Courcelles, which had the codenames Mike Red Beach and Mike Green Beach. So far, not a shot has been fired from the defenders on the beach. Will it be a pushover? We soon have the answer in the form of machine gun fire and shells from pillboxes, which are apparently still open for business despite the terrific pounding they have taken. The LCAs of the leading companies and the tanks of the 1st Hussars are working into the beaches now. Our has arrived. For the purposes of the assault, Courcelles had been divided in 2 blocks numbered 1 to 12. Each was to be cleared by a designated company. Careful study of enlarged air photos showing the sites of enemy strong points had made the ground itself easily recognizable. Every foot of the town was known before it was entered. In the first hour of the assault on Juno Beach, the Canadian forces suffered approximately 50% casualty rates, comparable to those suffered by the Americans at Omaha Beach. Once the Canadians cleared the seawall, they started to advance quickly inland and had a much easier time subduing the German defenses than the Americans at Omaha had. By noon, the entire 3rd Canadian Division was ashore and leading elements had pushed several kilometers inland to seize bridges over the Soules River. By 6 p.m. they had captured the town of Saint-Aubin-sur-Mer. By the end of D-Day, the elements of the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division had penetrated farther into France than any other Allied force. Though counter-attacks by 2 German armoured divisions would stop any further movement for several weeks, none of the assault divisions, including 3rd Canadian Division, had managed to secure the D-Day objectives, which lay inland, although the Canadians came closer than any other Allied formation. By the end of the next day, the Canadian forces had linked up with the British forces that had landed at Sword Beach. Battle of Normandy. On 8 June, SS Panzergrenadier Regiment 26 under command of SS Obersturmbannführer Wilhelm Moenke arrived on the battlefield. Their orders were to drive over the Canadians and force a deep wedge between them and a British division to the west. The attack launched at 3:30 but had little initial success. The various companies in the attacking 12th SS Panzer Division failed to coordinate the moves towards the Canadians, and, despite heavy casualties during repeated attempts by the infantry, Canadian artillery and supporting heavy machine guns of the Cameron Highlanders of Ottawa took a heavy toll on each attacking company of SS troops. The Regina Rifle Regiment held the ground and the I Battalion fell back. On the Canadian right, the 2 Battalion attacked the Royal Winnipeg Rifles defending the village of Poteau and Bessan. The battalion managed to break into the village and surround several companies, effectively pushing the Winnipegs out of the village, inflicting 256 casualties, of which 175 were taken prisoner. A counter-attack launched at 20:30 by the Canadian Scottish Regiment, however, regained Poteau and Bessan, and the 2 Battalion withdrew and dug in south of the village. Following the battle, SS Aufklärungs Abteilung 12 deployed to the west of Mock's regiment, and, by the evening of the 8th of June, the division, while having failed in its assignment to drive the Canadians into the sea, had effectively halted the units of the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division in the Allied advance on Caen. Spending much of the next 4 weeks in static positions, the division participated in the battles to capture Caen in early July, which included Operation Totalize and Operation Tractable, and the battles around Verrières Ridge. During the rest of the month, the brigade then took part in the pursuit across France, and clearing their channel ports, most notably Boulogne, Calais and Cape Gris. Battle of the Scheldt. Operation Switchback. The second main operation of the Battle of the Scheldt opened with fierce fighting to reduce the Breskin's pocket. Here, the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division encountered tenacious German resistance as they fought to cross the Leopold Canal. It was decided that the best place for an assault would be immediately east of where the 2 canals divided, a narrow strip of dry ground only a few hundred meters wide at its base beyond the Leopold Canal. A 2-pronged assault commenced. 7th Canadian Infantry Brigade made the initial assault across the Leopold Canal, while the 9th Canadian Infantry Brigade mounted an amphibious attack from the northern coastal side of the pocket. The assault began on October 6, supported by extensive artillery and Canadian-built Wasp universal carriers, which were equipped with flamethrowers. The Wasps launched the barrage of flame across the Leopold Canal, allowing the 7th Brigade troops to scramble up over the steep banks and launch their assault boats. 2 precarious, separate footholds were established, but the enemy recovered from the shock of the flamethrowers and counter-attacked, though they were unable to move the Canadians from their extremely vulnerable bridgeheads. By October 9, the gap between the bridgeheads was closed, and by early morning on October 12, a position had been gained across the Ardenberg Road. The 3rd Division fought additional actions to clear German troops from the towns of Breskens, Oostburg, Zoutszande and Kazan, as well as the coastal fortress Fort Frederick Hendrik. Operation Switchback ended on November 3 when the 1st Canadian Army liberated the Belgian towns of Nokke and Zeebrugge, officially closing the Breskens pocket and eliminating all German forces south of the Scheldt. After spending 3 months in static positions in the Nijmegen salient, the division engaged in fierce combat once more in February. Fighting once again through flooded terrain, the brigade helped clear the last German positions west of the Rhine. The brigade fought on into Germany and were ordered to suspend operations on the 4th of May 1945.